In my personal opinion, I'd say that Namekians are one of, if not the most straightforward of the character classes, especially in terms of combos. Whereas others, even the Earthlings, have a bit of, I don't know if complexity is the word I'm looking for. But anyways, with the Namekians, they definitely don't feel like the Ice Gens or even the Saiyans and the Majins to an extent as far as comboing, timing and whatnot. With the Namekians, they're definitely the more straightforward, excuse me, sort of brawling type. Definitely a lot of skill to their techniques and the way they hit and the way they throw their weight around. But definitely speed is not really their thing. But anyways, one of the cool things is how for their light attacks, their first two light attacks at least, has them stretching their arms. So you can get a bit of, okay, if I can do this without him dashing in. Okay, I don't know if it's certain moves I have equipped or certain super souls that's causing him to dash in. But, oh, that's beside the point. What's cool with Namekians is that when they're low on health, unfortunately it's when they're on their last bar, but when they're low on health, their health starts automatically recovering. Pretty slow and steady pace, but still, it's better than what other races have, which is no recovery at all. The only exception is the Majins, and that's only with their purification transformation. Whereas Namekians, they get it by default. So I'm just gonna have Nail hit me a little bit. So as you can see, I cannot stalk right now. As you can see, my health was recovering, not very fast, but at a steady pace. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you your entire last bar of health back, just to an extent, but it does help you stay in the fight a little longer to hopefully make that extra comeback or whatever it is you're trying to do. But yeah, that's just the only unfortunate downside to it. It only activates on the last bar of health, and it doesn't fully recover your health all the way. But that is to keep it fair. It wouldn't be fair if Namekians could recover their full health automatically all the way to 100% health. That'd just be very broken. And as far as combos and combo variety, in my opinion, they don't have as much variety to their combos compared to other classes, especially the Ice Gens. But again, for what they do have, it's because their style is more like that of a brawler, a sort of skilled or tactical brawler. It's just meant to like just hit the opponent and just basically have their combos get from point A to point B, not really moving around too much. And they have what I've discovered to be one of the easiest to learn stamina breaks, as far as into their forward light, into their stun breaks. I've yet to discover any combos that are any lengthier than that can go into their forward light, or anything that can go into their forward heavy. But if you use the forward light so many times, or if your opponent expects it, then you can probably go for a forward heavy just to try to throw them off a little bit, throw them off balance, make them fall for it, whatever it is you're trying to do. And then there's their unique transformation, becoming a giant. So it's kind of like with the Saiyans and becoming great apes, in which, well, I'm not gonna really get into the lore, but gameplay wise, one thing I noticed about giant Namekians is how much they have in common with the great apes. like the Great Apes, they have energy blasts, only they don't really have beams. It's single shots, but it's mouth cannons, mouth blasts. That's your short range, your mid range, your long range. And the long range kind of tracks a bit. Maybe not the best tracking in the world, but yeah, I'd say some tracking is better than none. And like the Great Apes, they have a certain type of roar attack, which for them is called Evil Roar, which helps to knock away if there's too many enemies around you. I mean, it doesn't do a lot of damage as much as Great Apes, but Great Apes are built in this game as bosses. Giant Namekians, in a way, almost feel like a sort of nerfed version of that. That's why it's so much fun playing as Giant Namekians against Great Apes. But it does drain your stamina. But it does not drain your stamina as fast as Kaioken would, especially Kaioken times 20. So therefore, Giant Namekian is one of the 3 transformations in this game that really it relies on how much stamina you have to be able to stay in that form, alongside Kaioken and the Majin's Purification. Only that's the weird thing. The Majin's Purification allows them to stay in that form. It doesn't drain their stamina automatically. But if they do get their stamina broken, then they revert back to the base form. Whereas with Namekians, just like Kaioken, it gradually drains their stamina no matter what. So you got to be careful how you use it. You don't want to use it up too much to the point where you're constantly getting your stamina broken and thus leaving you vulnerable. But you cannot be hit stunned, and you can't be thrown. And any damage your opponent does to you, it affects your stamina, so not your health. So if you get hit while in giant form, you only have to worry about losing your stamina. But again, you got to be careful because your stamina goes down very fast as you get hit consecutively. As far as combo routes, I think I already said this earlier, that they don't have as much variety to their hits. They're one of the most straightforward to learn. Although their light chain is pretty lengthy, as opposed to their heavy chain, which is very quick and doesn't really do any. It doesn't cause a heavy knockdown or any kind of knockdown. But well, I can't really express this enough, just how simplistic and straightforward their combos are. There's that sort of combo where you can start off with a light, go into a heavy to get a knockdown, alternate back and forth between light and heavy to get a heavy knockdown, or the usual light combo which knocks them away. Which that makes it definitely easier when you're comboing into, say, like a projectile, like a certain type of Kamehameha, or ultimate, like the ×4 Kamehameha, which has a lot of startup in it. Not a lot of startup, has very fast startup, so you can combo into them easier. Or you can go for a sort of heavy knockdown. Whoops, wrong one. Go for a heavy knockdown, especially after a stamina break. Go for any kind of attack that has a bit of startup to it, like the Burning Strike. Get some very good damage. And that's not a lot of hits into their knockdowns either. Just go for light, heavy, heavy. 1, 2, 3. Or you can go for more hits if you want to get more damage. And unlike other races, they don't really have a lot of combos that are multi-hitting, where one button you press has them do multiple kicks or punches, whatever. Unlike the ice gens, and I want to say to an extent the Saiyans, especially the male Saiyans, they also have plenty of multi-hitting buttons in their strings. Whereas the Namekians, they do have a few, but it's easy to read. So it's easy. Well, it's easy to read for both you and for your opponent. So your opponent can use that as a way to use those multi-hitting combos to vanish and attack you while you're still locked in that animation. But it's easy for you to learn, so that way you'll know what kind of combos you want to avoid. So if your opponent does vanish behind you, you can use a quick turn attack to try to counter them. And also, one of the benefits for Namekians that's unique is their throws. Yeah, maybe not the greatest range in the whole world. I talked about this when I was going over how to make a Namekian grappler in this game, and I already went over their basic throw. But they're really the only ones that I know of whose throw doesn't have them dash forward. Every other race kind of dashes forward a bit, which can make them somewhat more predictable, whereas Namekians, again, not the greatest, most impressive range, not as much as Namek Finger, but still more range than the other throws. And they don't have to dash in. And it does help get the opponent away from you if you're trying to create some space for yourself to do, well, whatever. Charge up your key, set up any kind of attack. Whoa, that looks awkward. So there's really not too much to it than that. Again, so in the end, the Namekians, they don't have a lot of combo variety compared to other races like Ice Gens and Male Saiyans, but it is very straightforward. So it wouldn't really take you a whole lot to get down the basics and probably learn a few advanced, more technical stuff with the Namekians. They do have an auto health recovery, but that's only when they're on the last bar of health, and it doesn't fully recover their last bar all the way, and it definitely doesn't recover all the way to 100%. Their basic throw, while not the most impressive range compared to the Namek Finger or even other moves that just are meant to be used from a distance like beams or whatnot, it's still definitely the most range compared to the others, and they don't dash in like the others do, which can also be kind of seen as a negative, that they don't dash in to get slightly more range because they just stand where they are. So you gotta be careful when judging the distance between you and your opponent. But again, it makes them somewhat less predictable when they're about to go for a throw. As far as with Ki Blast, their Ki Blast and their melee attacks are really nothing special compared to the other races, like the Earthlings, whose melee attacks they really excel at, or the Ice Gens, they themselves excel at speed and as far as Ki Blast. So Namekians are somewhere in between both of those. In my opinion, better use of melee attacks than Ice Gens, but not as good as Earthlings. A good use of Ki compared to Earthlings, but definitely not as good as Ice Gens. Their transformation Giant. A lot of people say Giant form is bad, which when you're fighting against multiple people, be it online or when you're doing a parallel quest, yeah, it can be hard to manage, especially if you got so many people coming after you all at once. that it it feels, well, at that point double-edged sword wouldn't be a proper description, something worse than that. So it's really mostly good for one-on-one, or if you're just playing around and you're going against great apes, then yeah, that's also a very fun time to use it. Get a bunch of friends together, use giant form against different or a whole bunch of great apes. So in the end, the giant form feels like a bit of a nerfed version of what great apes can do, which is basically almost all the same things but less damage, less effect. So as far as with the giant form, you got to be very careful of how you use it if you want to use it to its maximum potential, and really it's very situational. So fortunately with the Namekians, they're one of the two, along with the Earthlings, whose unique transformation, it's fun on its own, but you're better off using the universal transformations, the Kaioken and Potential Unleash. And there's really nothing else I have to say. Oh yeah, also their speed. Again, their speed is not that impressive. They're one of the slowest from what I've observed, alongside the male Majins. But at the very least, they're not so slow that it would take you an eternity to hit your opponent. So don't really be too discouraged about their speed. So with Namekians, it's kind of like when you play the sort of heavy hitters slash grappler types of any game. You gotta put in just a bit more work to get a good amount of damage compared to other character classes. But what stuff you can discover with them, whatever you can achieve with them, is it's really worth the effort. So overall, one of the simplest, one of the most fun, but not one of the most complex and most damaging character classes. And so I appreciate you all for tuning in. That's gonna be it. That's definitely gonna be it for this video, and I'll talk to you all in the next video. Have a great day.